Today in our 2016 Ford Taurus, we'll be installing the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX2643. Right, here's what our base plate looks like now that it's been installed and our bumper cover's back on. So you can see it's a nice clean look. The removable arms tuck up nicely behind our bumper cover here. One part we really have sticking out is our safety chain attachment points here. Now when we're not behind our RV and we're not being flat towed, the base plate comes with these plugs that you can insert where the removable arms go, and that'll keep any dirt and debris from entering there and making it difficult for the arms to go into place. When you're ready to hook up to your RV, you just simply grab the plugs, put them inside your cup holder or your glove box, take your removable arms, insert them horizontally like so, push and turn until it clicks into place. And that gives you a good attachment point for your tow bar to attach to. Once you get to your destination and you've unhooked your tow bar, you just pull the pin here, twist it back 90 degrees, and remove the arm, and reinsert your plastic cap. Alright, so here's our base plate. As you can see, it's a very substantial piece here. Provide a very sturdy connection to the frame of our vehicle so we can flat tow it behind our RV. For additional security, Blue Ox does use safety cables here that'll wrap around the base plate to the vehicle frame. Just in case some of the hardware were to break, it will provide an extra layer of security so you can pull over to the side of the road safely. It will attach to our frame using 10 of these handle nuts here. We have our installation hardware in this bag here, a couple carabiners to attach our safety cables, a couple mounting brackets for our breakaway switch, and then our removable arms here. All right, we'll begin our installation by removing our front fascia. We'll start with the hood open, and we'll remove these two 10mm bolts here and here on both sides of the bumper. Now we're going to remove all these Phillips screws going across the front edge here of our bumper cover. Now there's two push pin fasteners here and here on either side of the hood latch. We need to remove both of these. They have a Phillips head in the middle. We'll drive that out like so. Now we'll take a trim panel tool, come up underneath our fastener and pull it out. We'll take our cover here, lift it up and set it aside. Now we'll take a 5.5mm socket. We're on the driver's side of the vehicle just to point that out. We'll remove this screw here. It's located at the lower edge of our bumper cover. Take our trim panel tool and pop out the center section of these panel fasteners. And we'll pop out the whole fastener. Try to remove it all the way from the fender liner. We'll do the same on this second one here. And we'll repeat the same process on the passenger side. Now right here, there's another one of those plastic push pins that has a Phillips screw in the middle of it. We'll drive that out. You gotta try not to apply any upward pressure on these when you try to remove them. That way you don't push the pin back in while you're unscrewing it. Okay. Now there's 5 more of those plastic push pin fasteners underneath. Now on the inner edge of our wheel liner, there's an 8mm screw we need to remove. This 8mm screw has a little bit of a capture nut built into the fender liner, so it'll probably stay in your fender liner. So just keep that in mind when you go to reinstall it. Now we can remove our fascia. We'll grab one corner behind the headlight pull out on it. Go to the other side, do the same. Now before we pull it all the way off, we need to disconnect our fog lights, push in on this tab, and remove it. Alright, now we're on the passenger side. We need to disconnect our washer bottle. We'll just undo these two connectors here and unplug the hose that goes to the pump. Be careful when you're taking the hose out the pump. The nipple that the hose goes onto is very fragile. You don't want to break it off. You may need to get behind it with a screwdriver and help push the hose off. Just apply light pressure though to do this. Found a vacuum cap laying around, so when we unplug the hose, we can stick it on there to keep it from losing all of our washer fluid and making a mess. So we'll get the hose off and we'll plug that cap on there. Now there's two 11mm nuts we need to remove. One's here and one's here. There's also an 8mm bolt here. We'll remove that one. At this point we can grab our washer bottle. And before we pull it on forward and off, we need to disconnect this hose off the side of it here and disconnect this wiring right there. Then we can pull it down. And we'll set it aside. Now on the side of our air dam and grill shutter assembly, there's two push pins that we need to remove. So we'll use our trim panel tool. And we'll repeat the same process on the other side of the grill. Now we'll undo these two 8mm bolts here. We'll take this ambient air temperature sensor, just unclip it by lifting up, and we'll set it aside over here out of the way for the time being. Now we can unplug the motor for our air shutter system. Just push the tab and pull out. Take our trim panel tool here and we'll pop loose the wiring right there and again right here on the side. And we'll set that aside. Now there's two tabs on our air shutter system here. If you squeeze them, you can pull it out. Now on the back of our air shutter system, there's this bar here that controls our shutters and it wraps around our bumper. We need to remove this. So we need to squeeze these three tabs together. There's one at the top and two towards the bottom. So if we squeeze these tabs together, we can pull this bar off like so. And we'll do the same on the bottom too. You may need to raise the vehicle up and go from underneath to do that. So we'll squeeze these bottom tabs together and remove this bar. Now we can grab our air shutter assembly and pull it off the vehicle. And we can set it aside. Alright, so we raised our base plate into position and clamped it into place so we have a good reference point to drill our holes to mount it. If you come over to the passenger side, we can show you how we centered it up. There's this rib that sticks out in the frame rail. Our base plate has a cutout for it, and we centered the bottom of the base plate right in line with the center of that on both sides. We knew the base plate was level once these two parts here were making contact with our frame rail on both sides of the base plate. Now if our base plate clamped into position, we will drill out the holes in our frame rail that the bolts go through these two collars right here. They are the back two holes in the base plate. Now we'll take four of our 3/8 inch that are 2.5 inch long bolts. Put a lock washer on each bolt. We'll be using 2 of these bolts per side. We'll insert our handle nut here through this opening. You may need to put a little bit of a bend on it to get it the angle you need. We'll push it back towards our hole, just like so. Take some of our red Loctite here. We have this available for purchase on our website. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with the base plate, but if you need some, we do have it available. Get a little bit on there, just like that will do. Then we'll come in through the hole that we drilled. You'll put the nut plate onto the bolt and get it started. Now, you wanted to do the back hole first, just because it'll be easier to get to. Now you can do the front hole. Same process, stick your handle nut inside, get a bolt with some Loctite on it, and get it pushed on up through there. Then install the handle nut over it and get it on there. All right, we can tighten these down a little bit now we got them started. They use a 9/16 socket. Want to make sure you give them a few turns by hand before you use any power tools on them. Tighten them down a bit with 9/16. We'll go over to the passenger side and we'll repeat the same process. Now we'll torque these bolts down to the amount specified in the instructions. Alright, we'll repeat the same process on the other side. Now we can remove our clamping devices that we had our base plate held in place with. Now the instructions don't say to do this, but we're going to do that anyway. We're going to remove our horns because we need to drill a hole on the side here. And as you can see, there's no way you can get in there if you drill with the horn in place. So we'll unclip the electrical connector here, set it on to the side, and there's an 8mm bolt that holds our horns in place. We'll remove the bolt, lift the horn on up and out of the way. Now we have access to our hole we need to drill. So we'll drill up both these holes now. Now that we have a pilot hole, we'll drill these out to the final size. Take another one of our handle nuts here, one of our 1¼ long 3/8 bolts, and a lock washer. And just like the other bolts we've used so far, we'll put some red Loctite on it. Go back through our same hole that we did before. Get it into position, and we'll install the bolt into it. Now we'll do our front bolt. Snug these down a little bit. And we'll go over to the other side and we'll repeat the same process. Now we'll torque these two bolts to the amount specified in the instructions. We'll do the same to the other two on the other side of the vehicle. Now that we're done with our handle nuts that go inside our frame rail, we can take a pair of side cutters, put them over the handle, and just twist the handle until it snaps off. Do the same on the other side of the vehicle too. Now we need to drill out this forward hole here on our base plate. We'll just come in with our drill bit and drill through the bumper. Alright, we'll do the same on the other side of the base plate too. Now on the driver's side, you can see the hole we drilled right here. It kind of went up against this weld nut. Now this weld nut may be utilized on some vehicles, but if it's not utilized on your vehicle, you're going to have to break it off. So we'll use a pry bar, sit up against the weld nut, and we'll beat it off. Now we'll take 6 of our 3/8 flat washers and we'll stack them all together. And we'll slide them between our base plate and our bumper. Take our bolt, Make sure our washers go through there just like that. We'll put Loctite on our bolt, stick a handle nut through there, and we'll install it, making sure we have our lock washer on there. Take our handle nut, and we'll repeat the same process on the passenger side. Now we'll tighten these bolts down a little bit. Now we'll torque these bolts. Now that we have these front bolts installed, it's a good idea to double check the torque on the bottom ones here, just because it did pull the base plate up a little bit. And we'll do the side ones too, just in case. Now it's a good idea to take off your other handle nuts at this point in time. Now we can reinstall our washer bottle, but first we need to trim this upper forward tab off. Now you don't want to trim too much, because if you puncture the washer bottle, it could leak. So we'll just trim here and a pair of side cutters. Now we'll take our provided 1/4-inch washers, there's 7 of them, and we'll place them on the top rear hole here for our washer bottle. This will act as a spacer, so it'll sit even with our base plate here and not stick out at a weird angle. We'll raise our fill neck on up, hanging on the studs, just like that. Now we'll take the 2 11mm nuts, get them started. We'll tighten them on down. Now we'll take our 2 connectors here, one for the pump and one for the level sensor. I'll plug those in. We'll take off our cap that we stuck on to prevent fluid from leaking out of the pump. Again, we'll be gentle, we don't want to break off the nipple. Have our tube ready so we don't lose a lot of fluid. Stick the tube on. Get our tube routed back up. There was a clip on the neck. We need to reattach it to that. So we'll take our hose and we'll clip it in the neck here at the top, just like so. Now we can reinstall our horn. Put it in its tab and reinstall the 8mm bolt. And we'll tighten the bolt down. The bolt secured. Take our plug for the horn and unplug it back in. Now if our bumper cover face down on a soft surface, so you don't scratch it, we need to make some modifications to the inside edge. Use this paint marker here, and I'll show you where we're going to trim. We'll come over and mark the driver's side now. We'll do this to start. We may have to come back and do it again once we actually do a test fit. We'll use our plastic cutting wheel. Additionally, there's this tab here, right to the side where we just cut off. We can just break that off. Now we need to attach our permanent base plate safety cables to the attachment point on the base plate. We'll insert our quick link here, take our cable, and we'll wrap it around our vehicle's subframe. Come down to our quick link here. We'll tighten it up. Now we'll take a 5/8 wrench and we'll tighten our quick links. Additionally, what I like to do is bundle up our cable here, and then we'll put a zip tie around it just so we don't have to worry about our cable getting caught in any moving parts of our vehicle. We don't really have to worry about it on our driver's side, but more so our passenger side. Trim off our excess zip tie, and we'll do the same process on the passenger side. Now on our passenger side, you can see how close the cable will come to making contact with the belt and our air conditioning compressor. So we want to make sure that we really secure this cable on down and out of the way. So we can secure it here to this bracket on our subframe. As you can see, now our cable won't slide back and risk running into our belt and our AC compressor. Make sure we trim off our excess zip ties. Alright, now we have our air shutter system facing down with the bottom section here and the top section here. We need to pry off this cover here on the lower section using a flathead screwdriver. Just insert it and it pops off. So if you come in from the corners, you can pry the tab up on the side. So just like that, you can pop it off. Make sure you leave it oriented the same direction. Now we need to remove our 3 lower shutters here. So this one, and this one. So we'll come in with a flathead screwdriver, pop it up like that. Once you bend it a little bit, these tabs here can pull out of the side. We'll save these in case the base plate's ever removed and we need to reinstall them for later. With those 3 removed, we'll take our guide here, reinstall it, and this will move in conjunction with the lever on the back side because it'll connect the 3 pins here, here, and here together. So that's all we need to do to reinstall the upper one. Now we can remove this trim piece here by popping off the plastic retainer that holds it in place. Same on the other side of the shutter system. Now we can reinstall the shutter on the vehicle. So we'll insert our shutter system here back into the places, and we'll reinstall the bolts that we removed that held it in place. We'll take our big fender washer bolts and we'll tighten them down with the 8mm. Now we'll take our crossbar that connected our grill shutter system and we'll pop it in the top position first, and then we'll do the bottom 2. You may need to do this from underneath. Okay, now that we have our grill shutter system back in place, we can do a test fit of our bumper cover and raise it in position and find out how much of the grill we're going to need to trim. But first, let's take a measurement here. We can see that our safety chain loops here are right at 12 inches wide. And these are going to be centered below our license plate. Now, if we go over to our license plate on our bumper, we can see that it's right at 13 inches wide. So what we're going to do is we're going to trim out all this honeycomb here underneath our license plate bracket. That'll give us plenty of room to get our bumper cover in position around these arms and our wiring adapter bracket right here. We can slide it closer into the vehicle and make our marks for our tow bar arms. So we're just going to take some plastic cutters here and trim out along the edge of our license plate bracket. Okay, we have our bumper cover about in position where it needs to be. Now we can cut out our sections here for our attachment tabs. What we're going to do is just continue along the side here. That'll give us room for this attachment tab. That'll give us the room for our passenger side. As you can see, we just have a straight line going straight across on the bottom below our license plate here. Now, before we completely reinstall our front fascia, it's always a good idea to mount any accessory you may need, such as your braking system, breakaway switch, running your wires for your towed vehicle lighting system, or mounting your braking system control box if you need to mount it behind the bumper. All right, now that all of our trimming's done and all of our wiring, our operating unit, our breakaway switch is all mounted, we can have an assistant help us raise our bumper cover back up for the final time. Make sure we reconnect our fog lights down below. All right, with our bumper snapped back into place now, we can take our trim piece here, stick it back on over, and reinstall all of our fasteners that held everything into place. We'll reinstall our push pins here. We'll put our Phillips screws back in. There's 8 of them. Tighten those down. Now we'll put back in our push pin that holds the bumper cover to the fender. We can push our fender liner back up into position now. Put our 5.5mm screw in, and then our push pins here. All right, we'll do the same on the other side. Now we can put in our 5 plastic push pin fasteners underneath. Reinstall our screws here on the side. And that completes our installation of the Blue Ox base plate kit with removable arms, part number BX2643 on our 2016 Ford Taurus.
Click the link below to shop, learn more, or visit us at etrailer.com.